it's about I got to say, it's the stupidest thing in sports.
Being able to run as he shoots the moon to the fans here in Green Bay.
That is a disgusting act by Randy Moss.
This is not Detroit, man. This is the Super Bowl.
Here we go. From the gun to the touchdown.
This is BS Sports.
Mute. And welcome in. I thought it would automatically unmute me, but I'm stupid. And welcome in. Welcome in on a Tuesday evening. Just mere days after conference championship weekend. We got a lot to break down. It was a rough weekend for us Lions fans. Lions blow a 17-point lead to the 49ers. Chiefs stun the Ravens on the road, 17-10. We got a lot of coaches getting hired. Jim Harbaugh hired by the Chargers. You got a couple of no-name guys getting hired by the Panthers and the Falcons. You got breaking news today. Ben Johnson sticking around with the Lions, going to run it back as the offensive coordinator. Still uncertain about the situation with Aaron Glenn, as he was still going to, I believe, be interviewed for the Commander's job. But I guess I'm not really sure where we're going to start here. I think we'll probably start because, the Super Bowl is set. So I guess I'll start just briefly talking about this game, because we're going to do a much bigger preview next week. Once we're closer to the game, once we have a better idea of who's going to be playing, injuries, etc., any sort of controversy that could happen in a week, which, hey, things happen, crazy things happen, right? But this particular matchup, obviously, the narrative writes itself. It's a rematch of Patrick Mahomes' first ever Super Bowl win. It's a Kyle Shanahan redemption story. The 49ers are going into this game, I think, in a way, a much stronger team than they were the first time. I mean, you didn't have Chase Young, that's for sure. You didn't have Brock Purdy at quarterback. You didn't have Christian McCaffrey at running back. This is a much different 49ers team than the one that faced Patrick Mahomes 4 years ago. Now, at the same time, it's a much different Chiefs team. On the other side of it, Patrick Mahomes, I don't know if he was just straight up, or that offense just straight up not trying in the regular season, and then they were like, hey, wait a minute, guys. We're in the playoffs. We're the defending Super Bowl champions. We got a chance to repeat. Like, they just turned it on all of a sudden. And now I will say, to that point, last week, or I should say this past conference championship game, they were not good. You don't score a single point in the second half. I know what that's like, roughly, even though the Lions did score points in the second half. He's not good. You don't typically win those games. But the Chiefs right now are their defensive team. When they first met the 49ers, they were not a defensive team. No. You can go back and watch that game. I think Chris Jones was on the team, but I don't think there was anybody else. There was no L'Jarius Sneed. There wasn't any of that nonsense. Actually, he might have been. No, I think he's a rookie. No, not a rookie. I don't know if he was on that team. I'm pretty sure he was. Either way, they didn't have nearly the amount of good stuff coming from their defense in 2019, 2020 than they do right now. And on the opposite side, they didn't have the offensive struggles that they had going in. Like, you had Tyreek Hill, you had Travis Kelce, much better player, practically in the prime of his career, I'd say even. You had, I don't even know who the running back was. Was it Kareem Hunt? It might have been. It might have been Kareem Hunt. But either way, you had Mahomes really starting to take over. And now Mahomes is going into this game as the emperor. The Chiefs right now, they are the new Patriots. And I was talking to people about, it's like the AFC, they must be just like in nothing but shock and awe and pain and despair. Because it's like, okay, if you're an AFC team, you had to deal with the Patriots basically since 2000, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, 20 years roughly of misery from the New England Patriots. Finally, it's time for some other teams to, and I know some other teams won during that time, but it's finally time for it to be a lot of parity on the AFC side. And immediately after Tom Brady leaves, Patrick Mahomes is entered in. The Chiefs, if they win today, they're a dynasty. Or if they win in a week from Sunday, they're a dynasty at that point. The marker for dynasties, according to most people, myself included, is 3 championships. And frankly, they could have already had 3, right? When they played the Buccaneers in 2021, if Mahomes had an offensive line that was even halfway competent, they could have had 3 championships at this point. And frankly, if the Chiefs win this championship, they win this year, it is the most impressive. Even more impressive than last year, where they went up against the top defense in the league in the Philadelphia Eagles, and they made them look like fools. They made them look like utter buffoons, and they dropped a 40 bomb on them. Like, it's one of those things where I can't bet against Patrick Mahomes. Like, at this point, if you are still doubting that Patrick Mahomes is not one of the greatest football players ever, he's certainly right now the best. Like, if the postseason accounted for MVP voting, Patrick Mahomes would be the MVP, not Lamar Jackson. Like, full stop. It wouldn't even be a question. But again, on the flip side, it's hard to argue, or it's hard to bet against the 49ers, man. I mean, this is a team that, they go down and they get right back up. People forget they lost 3 games in a row this year. They lost to the Browns, team that got exited in the playoffs first round. They lost to the Vikings, team that didn't even make the playoffs. Like, and also they broke the Kirk Cousins curse. Believe it or not. The Kirk Cousins curse was that any team that lost to Kirk Cousins never made the Super Bowl. They broke the curse. So good job, 49ers. You did it. But either way, on that team, again, it's a who's who of who's going to hurt you. On offense, McCaffrey. You got George Kittle. You got Debo. You got Ayuk. You got Juszczyk. You got the Polish fullback. Whatever. I don't even know what position he technically plays. I'm pretty sure he's a fullback. He's an all-pro. I didn't even know who he was until he hurt me. And then Brock Purdy apparently able to make plays on his feet. Like, it's like this team is primed and ready. And they want this rematch. They want to be able to take it to the team that they should have beaten the first time. I mean, guys like Trent Williams, George Kittle, Debo, all were on this 49ers team that lost to the Chiefs the first time. And I truly think this is going to be a battle for the ages. I think this is going to be one of the great Super Bowls. And usually you go in expecting that to be the case because you're talking about the 2 best teams out of each conference, roughly. But I don't know that these are technically the 2 best teams. I think the 49ers are the best team in their conference. The Chiefs, I mean, are they better than the Ravens? I mean, they were that Sunday, but I don't know. I mean, like, it depends what Chiefs team I'm going to get. If I'm going to get the Chiefs teams that I've gotten the past few weeks in the playoffs, yeah, they're the best team in the AFC. But, I mean, even still, it's still somewhat questionable. Like, their defense is so good, though. And I think if any defense is going to be able to finally stop this hard-hitting offense of the 49ers, it's going to be the Chiefs. And we saw it in the conference championship game where the Lions defense was shutting them down, getting turnovers, forcing field goals. And this Chiefs defense is much better than the Lions defense. That's for dang all sure. So if the Chiefs get ahead early, I don't think there's going to be a comeback. I don't think that's going to happen. But I said also, I think if this is a shootout, if both these teams, none of them are playing defense, it's just, throwing and catching and big plays and touchdowns and field goals and no punts. Yeah, give me the Chiefs. But we'll talk about it later. And by later, I mean next week. This is going to be a good matchup. I think there's a lot of people that were like, and mostly in Lions circles and some outside of Lions circles who are like, I'm not even going to watch this tour. First of all, don't lie to yourself. You're saying that right now. You're hurt. I understand. I was hurt too. You're going to be there a week from Sunday. You're going to have CBS on your television. You're going to have a pizza. You're going to have wings. You're going to have people. You're going to be watching the Super Bowl because you want to watch. And I don't like to use this comparison because I think some people actually do genuinely follow through with this sort of thing. But it's when a company is post something controversial, like a popular company, like I don't know, like Amazon or ESPN or whatever, and they post something controversial, usually political, and someone on opposite side is going to say, I'm never going to watch ESPN. I'm just not going to do it. I'm done with ESPN. And then, like, what do? They go and they watch Monday Night Football, and they put on Sports Center. They download the ESPN app. Now, sometimes people don't do this. I want to be fair. There are people who actually follow through with these sorts of things, but understandably, it reeks of the same thing. I think it's immediate retaliation that will eventually cool over, and you'll just end up doing it anyway, which is probably its own problem in and of itself. But that's neither here nor there. So. Look, I'm looking forward to the Super Bowl one way or the other. I know some people aren't, but I don't know. I'm one of those weirdos who is, I guess. What can I say? I think these are two good teams. I think it's going to be a great game. So sue me. I don't know. What can I'm here for entertainment, okay? I'm not here for, narratives to be fulfilled. And this is going to be an entertaining game. I think it would have been an entertaining game if the Baltimore Ravens would have won. I think it would have been an entertaining game if I certainly would have thought it would be an entertaining game if the Lions would have won, but either way, it is what it is. So, just gonna have to deal with it. I'm rooting for San Fran though, just personally. So, anyhowser, I guess we can break down each of the games. We will start AFC Championship game. So this is a game to me that told me a lot about Patrick Mahomes and a lot about Lamar Jackson. Patrick Mahomes. Hold on. Let me pull up the stats. Let me actually pull up the stats. Let's pull it up on ESPN. Here we go. Box score right here. All right. Patrick Mahomes, 241 yards, 1 touchdown, just a couple of sacks, 30 for 39. He also ran for 15 yards on 6 carries, had 105 rating on ESPN. On the flip side, Lamar Jackson had 272 yards, had a touchdown, an interception, sacked 4 times, and he also ran for 54 yards. Now, you look at the total yards, you see, okay, 272, 54. It's far more total yards than Mahomes. Obviously, they had the same amount of touchdowns. Jackson had the 1 interception. Lamar Jackson loses the game. But you look at those stats and you're like, well, Lamar Jackson, he didn't really seem to have that bad of a game. No. Okay. Lamar Jackson chose a bad day to have a bad game. This was pitiful. I'm sorry, it was pitiful. You know how many completions he had in the first half? I don't know. You probably heard this stat before, but I'll let you think. Okay? Let's count together. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's it. 5 completions in the first half. Do you know how long the Ravens had the football? They had the ball for 22 minutes and 30 seconds. They had 3 total turnovers. They had 16 first downs, 336 total yards, yet somehow, despite having just 6 less first downs, despite having more total yards, they had the ball for 15 minutes less. For a quarter. They had the ball for a quarter less. Okay? Essentially, in theory, I know this isn't how it happened in practice, the Chiefs could have had the ball the entirety of the first quarter, and it wouldn't have changed the time of possession of this game. It would have been exactly the same, assuming the rest of the game played out the way it did, right? Lamar Jackson was pitiful. And I get it. It's not all on him. But frankly, a lot of it is on him. Okay? He didn't fumble out of the end zone. Understood. Got it. Believe me, I understand. But he has weapons now. He has Zay Flowers. He has Odell Beckham Jr. He has Nelson Aguilar. He has Isaiah Likely. Mark Andrews is playing. No excuse. None of this, well, they just haven't built a team. No. We weren't saying that before. Lamar Jackson had 1 touchdown in 4 quarters, and it happened in the first quarter. He went 2 quarters without even getting his offense in range to get points. Beside the fumble, he had that. And then when he did, either his team fumbles it into the end zone or he's throwing the ball to the wrong team. Like, I want to believe that Lamar Jackson can win a Super Bowl for Baltimore. I really want to believe. But every single time he makes the playoffs, he goes out and he plays like ass. Like he does this. It's like it's all sizzle, no steak with Lamar Jackson in the postseason. On the flip side, Patrick Mahomes has the worst statistical season of his career in the regular season. He gets to the postseason, you know what? Let's turn it on. That's when he decides he's going to have a good game. And he didn't even have that good of a game. He didn't score in the second half. Lamar, you had every opportunity to come back and win this game. They scored 17 points against the top offense in the league, and you lose the game. It's going to be so weird when he receives his MVP because he's going to win based on his regular season. But it's going to be the same thing as the last time he did, where he gets the MVP and everyone's like, he had a rough postseason, but, hey, look at the regular season. Ooh, he ran for 1 billion yards and he threw the ball to Zay Flowers. It's wonderful. It's great. You got cooked. You look terrible out there. There was so many times where I was predicting the drive. I was like, oh, you know what's going to happen, right? They're going to give the ball back. Oh, wow, the Ravens get the ball back. Oh, Lamar, here you go. Here's your chance to do a tying drive. Here you go. And it's 3-0. And he got like 3 yards. It's frustrating as someone who really wants the Ravens to be good. I like John Harbaugh. I like Lamar Jackson. He seems like a cool guy. I like that he bet on himself. I like all their players. I like Zay Flowers. I like Mark Andrews. I like OBJ. Like, I love Gus the Bud. And then Patrick Mahomes just comes in and he just goes, woo, and I don't even need to score in the second half. I'm not even an AFC, the Lions are in the NFC. I don't even care that much about what happens in the AFC, but yet I'm in pain looking at this because this is the exact kind of thing that Tom Brady used to do, where he'd go out, he'd play a garbage game, but teams would be like, I don't know, man, it's Tom Brady. We can't beat that. It's like, I don't know. We don't know what to do. We're throwing it to the wrong team. It's like, Lamar, your team's wearing purple. The other team's wearing red. I think they wore red. They might have worn white. I don't know which jersey. I can't even remember. This was several days. This is 2 days ago, and I've already forgotten. But again, it's like there was nothing else that they could have done, right? And I don't think their window is closed by any means. I don't think it's as dire a situation as, say, Buffalo. But man, this one's got to just it's just got to sting, especially given the fact your defense played out of its mind. Out of its mind. How many total yards did they give up to the Chiefs? They gave 319 total yards. Gave up just 17 points on that many yards. They were stopping them. You couldn't. The more that I talk about this, the more I'm just baffled. The more I'm like, how did you lose this game? How is it possible? It cannot be happening. How is Travis Kelce still their leading receiver? How? Make that make sense. He's 100 years old. He doesn't even have any hands left. They're all gone. You had one job, Baltimore. Kill Taylor Swift. End this suffering that me and millions across this wonderful country, across this beautiful land, all we wanted you to do was kill Taylor Swift. And you fumbled the bag. Quite literally, if you're Zay Flowers, you fumbled the bag. Also, I will say, this is sort of unrelated, but has this been the biggest year for fumbling into the end zone and offensive offsides? I feel like there's never been a year where this has happened more times than it has this year. I don't remember anybody fumbling into the end zone last year. I don't remember it happening the year before that. I don't remember it happening the year before that. I certainly don't remember any offensive offsides last year or the year before. It's like this year, it's like the NFL was like, hey, you know what we could do? Why don't we do some offensive offsides? People don't expect that. People don't usually, nobody really thinks about that. It is a rule. I bet next year we're going to get a bunch of defensive delay of games. Like, we're just going to get a bunch of weird penalties that people are not used to. Maybe we'll get like an offsides on the kickoff. We'll get a special teams offsides. We could do that, right? Just start doing a bunch of weird penalties that people forget exist. Maybe everyone's gonna start kicking it out of bounds on a kickoff. I guess people don't forget that, but it's still kind of weird because it doesn't happen like ever. But either way, it showed me at bottom. This game showed me Mahomes and that Chiefs team is, for one, more experienced, which is just obvious. But also that when it comes to these clutch moments, you just got to trust Mahomes more than you could trust Lamar Jackson. And I hope that next year it's not the case and they can really put it together. But, at this point, like, Lamar Jackson can do a lot in the regular season. Until the postseason comes, I'm not interested. I'm really not. Like, he could have another MVP season next year. But you got to do it in the postseason. You got to have these kinds of games in the postseason. You can't win a game when you're throwing just 5 receptions in the first half. You can't do it. You just can't. But on to sadder things, at least for me as a Lions fan. Got to talk about the NFC Championship game. Lions fall in embarrassing fashion. They lose to the 49ers, who come back from a 17-point deficit. They score, what was it, like 20 unanswered points, something like that. Yeah, I think it was 20 unanswered points. And it was as bad as it sounds. Now, what I will say is this game came down to the Lions making 3 very unfortunate mistakes / unlucky things all in a row, essentially. Actually, you could even go 4. So you have the 4th down where the Lions go for it, and Josh Reynolds drops a ball that he catches 9 times out of 10, followed by the miraculous catch by Brandon Ayuk that Vildor had dead to rights. He should have intercepted. And then followed by the Jahmyr Gibbs fumble on the first play of the following drive. And then followed by another drop by Josh Reynolds. It was those 4 plays in sequence that completely switched the game. It was like once Josh Reynolds failed to convert that 4th down, or failed to convert, that initial failing to convert that 4th down, that was when it basically was over. And I want to say this, okay? Because there was a lot of, what's the word? Like, not happenstance. Why am I thinking? What am I blanking on the word? Hindsight. I knew it began with an H. There's a lot of hindsight Henrys during and after this game. Oh, why didn't you just kick the field goal, Dan? Why'd you go for? It's like, okay, well, for one, we're assuming that we're going to make the field goal. I don't know if people are aware, but our kicker is Michael Badgley. Not great when outside, and also not great when it's a super deep kick. He made that one 50-some yard kick in against LA, I think it was, or maybe maybe it wasn't LA. I don't remember what game it was at this point, which was inside. And we weren't, I guess in both cases you could, in one case we could have answered their field goal with a field goal, but it's, to me, I'm not going to deal with hypotheticals of what you should or shouldn't have done, because they did something. They went for it. It didn't work. First time they went for it, I mean, that's a play they just had to have. They had that play. It's not, again, it's not like you run a stupid trick play and the defense takes you down for, 10-yard loss, right? It's not like you fumbled the snap. It's not like you threw an interception, which actually technically would have been slightly better because it would have given them less worse field position. It's you threw the ball to a man who was open and he dropped the ball. It wasn't a bad throw. There wasn't too much on it. It was right where Josh Reynolds likes it. Jared Goff and Josh Reynolds have great chemistry, and he just drops it. Like it was, and a good team, a great team even, like the 49ers is going to take advantage of those kind of mistakes. I mean, the Rams couldn't take advantage of the mistakes the Lions made in that game. The Buccaneers certainly couldn't take advantage of the mistakes the Lions were making that game. But you're in the NFC Championship. You're going up against the crowd, for one. You're on the road. And you're going up against the number one seed, a team that has been there before. And that's what's going to happen. On the other side of it, to try to make some sort of silver lining of it all, it's a team with heart and drive. I mean, there was never a point where the team flat out gave up. And I know that's a low bar to reach, given, you're in the NFC Championship game. I'd hope you're not just giving up. But they had a lot of things not go their way, and it was their own fault. It wasn't like there was really no ref involvement in this game. There was like a few penalties, but nothing. They kept the flags in their pocket. I was pretty surprised by that, and I appreciate that because it means I don't have to talk about stupid officiating calls or argue with people about, the ref should have called this, should have called that, whatever. But this is a team that had a lot of drive. I mean, to go for the touchdown in that final drive there, and you get it. Jameson Williams made a fantastic catch, and it came down to the wire. I will say, so that final drive where they ran the ball with Montgomery and he got stuffed and they had to use their first timeout, I was I might be wrong on this. I figured they were going to onside kick it anyway, and maybe I was technically wrong on that. I think the broadcast and a few other people were saying, well, technically, because they had all three timeouts, they could have done a regular kickoff and then just hope their defense made the stops. But you had to use your timeout, which meant now they're in a different situation. You run the clock is much lower now because you just ran that play, and it wasn't great. I understood why they did it, because it's one of those things where it's like, is anybody really expecting you to run it? And David Montgomery is pretty much money at the goal line. But obviously it didn't work. It was, you gamble, you make a mistake. It's going to happen. I mean, this is the same team that in the very same game ran the ball out of shotgun on 3rd and 12 and got it. I don't think they're afraid to call a run or a pass play relative to the situation. They're running the play that they think will be successful. But on that same note, even on that onside kick, there was a little fleet of a moment where you had, I don't even know who it was, dive for the football as it was just about to cross 10 yards. Didn't quite cross 10 yards. It was illegal touching, which totally legit penalty there. But it was one of those things where it was like, you hate for this team to do that, but that, the team is going to run with this. And, because I think they have the right coach, I think they have the right general manager. And I know it's weird saying that, given the fact that they were in the NFC Championship and had a chance to go to the Super Bowl at the half, right, where they were looking at on ESPN, an 80% chance to win the game. And that's what sucks so much, is that it's not like it was a shootout where it was anybody's game. You had the game and you had a chance to really seal the deal. I think maybe if they would have had that touchdown before the half, you might have been able to better justify it, where you would have been up 28-7, right, at the half, as opposed to 24-7. And then you would have been able to be like, yeah, even if they kick that field goal the next time, you're dealing with 28-18 or 28-10. And then now you can start dealing some risks with your kicker and field goals. But either way, again, other than maybe running the ball on 3rd and goal, which was probably the wrong decision. I'm willing to grant that. I'm willing to even grant that it was the wrong decision. There was not a whole lot that I disagreed with from the coach. And it begs, or I don't really like using begs the question that way, because technically that's not what the phrase means, but whatever, we'll use it that way. It begs the question then, do you still roll with these gambling ways of Dan Campbell? Because I think there's a lot of people who voice their displeasure in it. Not just in the media, not just non-Lions fans. I think a lot of Lions fans don't like it. And my thing is, we won 12 games with the gambling, and we were going to win more with the gambling. We should have won the game because of the gambling, right? We should have converted at least that first fourth down. We probably could have converted the next one, the later one when we were down 3. But you live by the sword, you're going to die by the sword. It's just a reality. And it's one of those things where you're just going to have to deal with it. If you're a Lions fan, heck, if you're an NFL fan and you think like, oh my gosh, he's so – how could – it's like, yeah, he's so dumb that he got a division title for a team that hadn't won it in 30 years and was, a conversion away from essentially sealing a championship game in the third quarter. That's how dumb he is, because it's his fault that Josh Reynolds happened to have stone hands at the wrong time, right? Like, it is what it is. But ultimately, the 3 people that are taking the blame, so to speak, are going to be Dan Campbell's gambling. You have the drop balls by the receivers. But one that's kind of sneaking by for me is the defense, because ultimately, the defense had the opportunity to hold on to that lead. San Francisco didn't punt in the second half. They barely punted at all. They punted just one time the whole game. Every single drive, they were either scoring, kicking a field goal, or some combination of the two, right? Obviously, Moody had the missed field goal early, but outside of the missed field goal and the one punt, every drive resulted in some sort of points for the 49ers, I believe. I could be wrong on that, but basically every single drive, or not every single drive, because we had the interception, right? And the thing was, too, the interception was great. Shout out to Malcolm Rodriguez. I thought it was awesome for him to get that, but it happened early. Our turnover happened in the third quarter. Theirs happened in the first or the second quarter? Seemed like things were going our way, and that's why that's why it's 60 minutes. It's not 30 minutes of football. And I think the experience of the 49ers showed, and the inexperience of the Lions showed as well. On the defensive side, though, you couldn't reach Brock Purdy most of the game. You sacked him just twice, and by that time, the game was already pretty much out of reach. Now, granted, that was a clutch stop because it forced them to kick the field goal. But at that point, then you're playing from behind. You're getting desperate. That's where the fourth down, into 49er territory came. And man, there's a lot of different people to blame. But I think the thing that I like about the loss, and not that I like the loss, is that I can identify the reasons that we lost the game. I can identify the sequences. I can identify the mistakes that were made that led to the loss. I don't have to worry about, can Jared Goff perform in the big moments? Clearly he can. He had a great game. Can Dan Campbell make the right decision in the big moment? I think he did make the right decision in the big moments. It just didn't work, right? It's not like, he's going for fourth down in your own territory or faking a punt at the 20 when you're down 16 or something, right? I don't think anybody is worried about the gambling if we convert that fourth down, if we win the game, say 35 to 30 something, or 35 to 20 or something. I don't know. Nobody's worried about oh man, he's gambling too much. Nobody's worried about that. But because he lost, he takes all the blame. When he wins, he doesn't get any of the credit. When he loses, he gets all the blame. It's just how it is. But on that note of the Lions, the reason I'm not super upset about it, because obviously I was a little concerned, you're probably going to lose Ben Johnson. You might lose Aaron Glenn. And I know there's differing opinions on Aaron Glenn, but losing a lot of personnel can bite you in the behind, right? You just look at the Philadelphia Eagles. They went from Super Bowl team to first round exit, not even winning their division. But big news out of today, Ben Johnson's staying in Detroit, which I think is easily the biggest news for Detroit. Outside of any offseason moves that they're going to make, which they will be making offseason moves, obviously, this is one of the clutchest things to happen for them. You already had a potent offense, right? With him sort of coasting on this, sort of honeymoon of, just go out, win the division and win a playoff game and then do whatever. And you did that and then some. But now they're looking for revenge. They're looking to finish the job. They're looking to get rid of these third quarter woes, or at least they should be, because that was Ben Johnson's bugaboo all season, was terrible third quarters. And you go back to any of our losses, minus except maybe the Baltimore blowout, because I think that game was lost in the first quarter. You go back to any of those losses, a lot of it probably comes down to that bad third quarter football where the Lions are just unable to get out of their own way. But I think him staying in Detroit shows that he wants to be a part of this. And it's one of the things that I'm very foreign to as a Lions fan, where coaches and coordinators and, in theory, players want to stay in Detroit, right? Like Jared Goff, they're talking about getting an extension, but he's not like demanding, $100 billion a year. He's like, he wants to stay here. That is his preference is to be in Detroit, be the quarterback. And you're probably going to have a lot of free agents feeling the same way. It used to be that you have to overpay guys just to come play for Detroit, try to convince them that, hey, we're actually going to do something. We swear. Now it's like guys will be like, you know what? Yeah, I'll take a little bit of a discount to come play for Dan Campbell, come play for a winning team, come play for a chance to win a Super Bowl, right? Like, I don't know where they're going to go in free agency. I imagine they're going to look at this defense. I think they're going to look in the secondary. Kendall Vildor, thanks for the memories, brother, but you're certainly not it. And I know there's a lot of Cam Sutton hate going around, and I think it was a bad sequence of events for him, and also having him be your number one corner, not great, because he's just not that guy. He's not that good. I think largely game to game, he's probably going to be okay, but we saw how he got diced up by Justin Jefferson and Mike Evans, and then in this game, Ayuk or Debo or whoever he happened to be on in that particular play. But I think they're going to be looking in the offseason for defense one way or the other. And you start with a good thing, and it's like it's like addition by completion. I don't even know. I was going to say addition by subtraction, but that's not true. It's addition by keeping. It's addition by adding zero. I don't know. Like you keep your coordinator. And I honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Aaron Glenn does the same thing. Now, what I will say is he's in a slightly different situation where, his defense isn't nearly as highly praised. So I don't think he's going to be able to necessarily get away with demanding as much as Ben Johnson allegedly was demanding from the Commanders or from the Seahawks. But I wouldn't be surprised if he wants to stick around and run it back. Like, to Aaron Glenn's credit, the defense got better as the year went on. And also, he had to deal with a lot of personnel injuries. He had to deal with no C.J. Gardner-Johnson all season. He had to deal with no Emmanuel Mosley all season. He had to deal with no James Houston all season. He had to deal with, a couple of games without Aleem McNeil in there. He was basically running it with a rookie linebacker and Jack Campbell, who had a pretty decent season. Aiden Hutchinson, who was by himself on that defensive line much of the time, and Alex Anzalone having the year of his life. But either way, I'm not going to be over the moon if Aaron Glenn leaves, as some people who just really don't like the guy. I'm also not going to be like super happy if he sticks around. I think certainly he's shown some capability to be a little creative on defense, with blitzing corners and blitzing safeties and, trying to trick offenses and whatnot. But, he does get burned a lot. He does get burned on these big plays from wide receivers like Justin Jefferson, Mike Evans, Ayuk, etc. And it's bend don't break. It pretty much worked as designed. I don't think it was a flaw in the design, but it might have been a flaw in the philosophy. But either way, moving along to some other news that is a bit older at this point, just to wrap it up, because there's not really much else to talk about. We're just doing all NFL this week. I just realized that's the entire show sheet is just NFL news because there's nothing else. I guess this is sort of college-related news. Jim Harbaugh. Now, this is, I know, a week old at this point, but Jim Harbaugh, new Chargers head coach, and I think this is an absolutely fantastic hire for the Chargers. Seth, unfortunately, is not here to celebrate with us as Jim Harbaugh, his once enemy as a Michigan State fan like me, is now his only hope in saving this Chargers team. Now, what I will say is Jim Harbaugh, he is something of a quarterback guru. I mean, we saw it in the pros at least some time ago, right? With Alex Smith and then Colin Kaepernick. And then we saw it in college with, Cade McNamara and then J.J. McCarthy. The only thing I will say is both Cade McNamara and J.J. McCarthy are very different quarterbacks than Justin Herbert. Definitely a different quarterback from Justin Jefferson. Justin Herbert, he's a gunslinger. He's not a Duncan Dime. He's not a play action necessarily. Although with Austin Eckler as your running back, you can certainly do a lot of play action with them. But either way, Jim Harbaugh is a far more experienced and far more qualified coach than Brandon Staley. I don't see this not working out for the Chargers. I think they will be a good team. I think they'll put together some really nice seasons. As far as whether or not they'll win the Super Bowl, still yet to be seen. Jim obviously tried to win the Super Bowl with the 49ers and came up short. And the more that I look at the Chargers and I look at just the talent pool they have, I'm like, how did Brandon Staley mess this up? Like, how is that even possible? Like, hold on, real quick. I need to look at their depth chart. Okay. Like, how did Brandon Staley, hold on, we're loading. Here we go. You have and this is counting injuries. So some of these aren't even, some of these aren't even accurate technically. So you have Keenan Allen, Jalen Guyton. You have, Jalen Guyton is technically a tight end, I think. You have Josh Palmer. You have Quentin Johnston. When he's healthy, you have Mike Evans or Mike Williams, not Mike Evans. They could have Mike Evans. You have Austin Eckler. And then obviously you have Justin Herbert at quarterback. On top of the fact that on defense, you have Khalil Mack. You have, where is he? Joey Bosa, right? Where's Joey Bosa? Oh, was he hurt? He must have been hurt. You have Asante Samuel. You have Eric Kendricks. You have so many guys where I'm like, how did you make this like terrible? Like, not like you made it like average. I could see that, right? Like 9-8, 10-7, like 8-9. I could see that. How did you make it 5-12? Like, how did you even do that? That's like something terrible must have happened. And what's funny is if you look back at like some of the news cycle around when he was hired, when Brandon Staley was hired, this was the same hiring cycle as Dan Campbell. Everybody, oh, look at the Chargers. They really hit on this one. They really got the right. Could you believe the Lions? They hire that bum tight ends coach. What does he know about? And then Brandon Staley was an unmitigated disaster, and Dan Campbell is the exact opposite. But I don't know. Time will tell. At least it won't tell on Brandon Staley. Brandon Staley is certainly less successful than Dan Campbell. But assuming Dan Campbell keeps going where he's at, and we basically are consistently a 10-plus win team every season, making playoff runs rather consistently, like, it's not going to be any question. But I think it's a good hire. I think it's a splash hire. And I saw earlier, I think yesterday, that they're looking to hire some GM. And I think there's something to hiring the coach and then hiring the GM. This is what the Lions did. They hired the coach before they hired the GM. And I think the idea is that either way, I guess you can do it either way, but you bring in a coach that's established like Jim Harbaugh, who like, he doesn't need, a GM to figure out, how to assemble a team. Like, he knows what it takes to be a successful team in the NFL. And Jim Harbaugh bringing in him and then bringing in a GM that is like-minded, that like knows the same sorts of stuff. I believe it was a guy from the Ravens, which would make sense because Jim Harbaugh, obviously his brother, John Harbaugh, great connection with the Ravens there. I think he was like a Ravens scout or something like that. or like assistant to the GM, something like that. Either way, you're hiring from good groups of people, right? It's like outside of like Belichick and hiring from his people, if you hire from competent organizations who have done ostensibly good things, you probably will have good results. It's like the Lions hire somebody who studied under Sean Payton and was the assistant head coach of a successful Saints team that almost made the Super Bowl. It's like, okay, good. We'll go with this guy. And then their GM was a college scout for the St. Louis and then Los Angeles Rams, who went to the Super Bowl. And then the very next year actually won the Super Bowl with many of the players that he helped scout. It's like, yeah, this is what happens. You hire from groups of people who are qualified for one, and then also are just good. Like they just know what they're doing. So I think the Chargers are taking note. I think you very well could see immediate success with this move, given the talent. I mean, I'm not going to go over I'm not going to the depth chart again, but they have the talent. They have the guys. You know, you can always add more. And, you know, Quentin Johnston, certainly a player who needs a little bit of work, but he was a great player for TCU. He's probably still going to be a good NFL player with a great quarterback in Justin Herbert. I think it's just a matter of getting him in the right mindset. And frankly, I'm surprised that any player would want to play for Brandon Staley. He really does not seem like a guy that you would want to play for. Whereas Jim Harbaugh, for all the Michigan stuff, you know, obviously I'm a Spartan, so I don't have a great love for Jim Harbaugh as a football coach, especially the last couple of years. But he certainly knows football, and he certainly is a much more personable guy. I think players love him at every level. They loved him in the pros when he was 49ers. They love him in college. I really like. I think like there's something to it. Like it's a similar situation too to Pete Carroll, right? Pete Carroll, obviously I believe he's the coach of the Patriots, goes back to college. He's generally speaking unsuccessful with the Patriots, even though I think he was a little underrated potentially. I think there was some situations where he did not actually, he wasn't the coach when they went to the Super Bowl against Green Bay, was he? I don't think he was. I don't know. Either way, he gets fired. He gets fired out of the NFL, just like Jim Harbaugh got fired out of San Francisco. You know, they might use less colorful language than that, but, you know, when somebody tells you they would like you to leave from your own job, it's a very nice way of telling you you're fired. But either way, he leaves for college, has success in college, wins a national championship, is, you know, covered in scandal, to say the least. We're not going to get into it, but either way, there's no denying that there's a lot of scandal going on with Michigan right now. He runs away from it. Fair enough. Doesn't want to deal with the suspensions. And now he's going to take over a team on the West Coast, actually, that has never had any success at the championship level. I'm actually really talking to myself. This is a very similar situation. And Jim Harbaugh is not like totally young, but he's young enough that, you know, you're gonna be able to keep him for, if he does a good job, you're gonna keep him for, you know, a decade, right? Similar to what Michigan did. They hired him in 2014, I believe it was 2014, 2015, and kept him for roughly a decade until, you know, things led towards his want to leave. We'll just leave it at that. But either way, moving along to the next couple of hires before we wrap the show up. I'll be a little bit brief on these because, frankly, I don't have much of an opinion. Let's start with the one that I kind of like, and that would be the Panthers hiring Dave Canales, the quarterbacks coach and offensive coordinator of the Buccaneers. He was the offensive coordinator this year. And, I mean, hey, you look at that offense of Tampa Bay with Baker Mayfield having a career resurgence. I think it's a fine hire. I really do. You know, Bryce Young did not have a great start to his career, but Dave Canales certainly could be a guy that is, you know, something of a quarterback whisperer, you know, something of, you know, can get the most out of Bryce Young. Now, my thing is, I don't know that Bryce Young has much that you can get out of him. Probably not as bad as what we saw last year, but I don't think it's that much better. Like, his measurables are not great. It's not easy to be a quarterback in this league when you're like 5'10", which he is, which is funny because it's taller than me, but either way, short by NFL standards. And you also, like, it wasn't like there was a mega arm or, any of these physical stuff. It was all just, he's a gamer. He is competitive and stuff, and he has a good IQ. But good luck looking over the offensive line. But either way, I think this is a good hire. I don't know if it'll work out because it's Carolina and their owner is a maniac. Like, actually, there's a story of him where he bought his ex-wife's like house or something. It was like he bought some former lover's house or something, demolished it, and then built a new building right. And are you okay? Do you have bodies in your basement, Dave Tepper? Are you currently American Psycho? Are you actually Patrick Bateman, just fatter and uglier and with glasses? I'm concerned, but I don't know. They must. Hopefully, Dave Canales doesn't get his drive and love for football completely sucked out of him, like Frank Reich apparently did by Dave Tepper. But on the surface, it seems like a fine hire, but I don't know. Hopefully, results can fix Dave Tepper's attitude, but something tells me it won't matter. And then on the flip side, one that I just don't quite understand. The Falcons hire Raheem Morris, the Rams defensive coordinator. I don't understand this at all. Especially there isn't a lot of information on the particular link that I got here because it was just the post from Bleacher Report. But I'm pretty sure as a head coach, he has a losing record because he's been a head coach at a few different places, either as interim or just by choice. And then further, the DC of the Rams, who had a not great defense this year and just barely snuck into the playoffs. Am I a little I'm not a Falcons fan, but there's nothing here that I'm blown away by. And maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe Raheem Morris, he could be I know a lot of people that felt the same way about Campbell, right? Didn't really seem like he had much of a resume to his name as a head coach or any of that. But no, I mean, I think it could work. I want to say he's a former player for the Falcons. I want to say he is a former player for the Falcons. He played for the Buccaneers. I can just see it in that Google image. Hold on. Here we go. Okay, that is him as the coach. Or no. Yeah. No. Yeah, no, that's him as a coach. Okay, here it is. He actually, here's his coaching record. Okay, here we go. I didn't even mean to find this, but I found it. He was the coach of the Buccaneers from 2009 to 2011, where he had a 17-31 record. So not great. He also was the interim head coach for the Falcons. So they do have some past with him. He went 4-7. So again, not ideal. Now, the other thing was you look at some of his overall stats here. So in point differential, they were 29th. In, let's see, points, I'm looking at 2009. And I'm looking at his whole time actually from Tampa Bay. All right. As a head coach, he was 30th in points, 20th in points, then 27th in points. In defense, in points, he was 27th. Then he was top 10. All right. You got something, Raheem. He was number 9 in points allowed by the defense. Okay. Feeling good. And then he was 32nd. Okay. Well, let's say 2 steps forward, 32 steps back. What do you say to that? I don't know. This doesn't look great. You had to move on from Arthur Smith. It just wasn't working out. But you also got to think there's really not a whole lot of reason to believe he's going to be some like super great coach. Like, okay, again, looking at him in LA, his defense had, I mean, they were 15th in points, then 21st in points, and then 19th in points. He won a Super Bowl with them with their defense, but it was an average defense. Like, it wasn't blowing you away in terms of points. There's not a whole lot for me to praise him for, other than that he's got a lot of experience, which is not ideal. But again, maybe it just might happen to be a right fit. Obviously, he does have something of a history with Atlanta, being their interim coach for a brief time. Maybe it works. I'm going to go out on a limb and say signs are pointing to no. We're on our little magic 8-ball. If you shake it up, that's what it's going to tell you. That's not great. I feel bad for the Falcons. They have a lot of talent on that team, and just doesn't seem like they're hitting the head coach they're just not hitting it. And maybe they will. Again, this is good age like milk. I don't know. I'm not all that confident in it. I don't know that something happened to that team when they lost 28-3. Well, they didn't lose 28-3. They blew 28-3. You understand. You were there. Everyone was there. Everyone was watching. You, me, everyone's family, God, everybody was watching that game. Now, if the Lions would have lost that way, you'd be getting a much angrier me. Instead, I turned my rage this week to Lamar Jackson. That was what I did. I had to turn it to somebody, okay? Like, there's a lot of emotion. It's an emotional time for me, okay? So before we get going, because there's not much to do after this, we're not gonna do the prediction for the Super Bowl until next week, as I said before. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that Michigan and Michigan State are going to be playing in basketball tonight at 9 o'clock. 9? Some of us work for a living, MSU. I mean, what the heck? And second of all, there's two reasons I'm very upset about this game. Number one, it's at 9, which is like literally I'm gonna fall asleep to this game. Like, actually, I'm not even that might actually happen potentially. Secondly, like, these teams suck and they're being played on Peacock. So what NBC is telling me is you need to pay to watch these games. Right now, I'm looking at Ohio State, Illinois. I don't know if, like, Peacock, NBC, if they just, like, I don't know, they have, like, blood money on the Big Ten or something. Or maybe the Big Ten have blood money on them or something. I don't know, like some sort of, like, monkey's paw situation where they just happen to buy the streaming rights to Big Ten football and Big Ten basketball, Big Ten sports in general. I don't know if that's what happened, but my goodness, they couldn't have bought this conference at a worse time. Our basketball teams are terrible outside of, like, Purdue, and even then, whatever. You're gonna get out of the first round this time, Purdue? I don't know. And then our football team, you know, you had Michigan, and you had Ohio State, and then you had, hold on, wait a minute, here it is. Let me pull it up. This is the rest of the Big Ten. Just dead. Just dial tone. They're not there. They're not answering the phone. That's what they were. So good job, NBC. You really did good on this media rights. Couldn't have bought in on the Big Ten at a worse time. Like, actually, unironically. Now, to be fair, CBS, they're gonna get football games. They got one early this year. It was like a little preview of that, but they're gonna get it more so next year. But either way, you bet on gold and you bet on red, NBC, and well, you're getting Ohio State basketball currently losing by 7 at home to Illinois. They're 3-6 in the conference. Can I actually pull up the Big Ten basketball standings? Let's see. What are we looking like? Okay. Well, that's not. It just immediately switched to something that's not the Big Ten, so thanks for that. I mean, my God. This is terrible. Okay, you have Wisconsin's having a good year, 8-1 in the conference. Purdue, okay, And then you got 6-3 Illinois and 6-3 Northwestern. Okay, we're not feeling great about this so far. And you got 5-5, 5-5, 4-5, 4-5, 4-5, 4-5, 4-5, 3-6, 3-6, 2-6, and meanwhile Michigan in dead last, 2-7. They've lost 3 in a row. The longest win streak right now is 5 with Purdue, who is 19-2, and they're undefeated at home, so I'll give them that. But like everybody's road record is terrible. Or like not impressive. Like Purdue has the best road record, 4-2. But I'm looking at everybody else. It's like Ohio State hasn't won a road game. Michigan has won 2 road games. Ohio State. How are you? How? Penn State hasn't won a road game. Michigan State 1-4 on the road. Like Rutgers 1-5. The Big Ten used to be a good basketball conference. You used to have Ohio State, Michigan, Michigan State, Purdue, Illinois. You had all these teams all pretty much playing pretty high-level basketball. Indiana. You had all the, like usually they were in the top 25. Even Wisconsin with, what's his name, Potter or whatever. I don't even remember the guy's name. It was Potter something or maybe his last name was Potter. I don't know. Like, and now it's just, does anybody care about basketball? Has all the money just gone into football? And yet still we only have 2 good teams there too? Goodness gracious. But either way, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about it. I'm wearing Michigan State gear in anticipation for what is going to be one of the worst basketball games I'll ever have the displeasure to watch, where Michigan State will probably end up winning somehow. Not through their own talent and skill, but through sheer force of will. Just the will of God is going to be the reason they win that game. Is because it was written in the universe by our creator, by our divine creator and savior. That's why. So, with that uplifting note, we're going to wrap up the show. It's weird wrapping up shows without doing weekly predictions. Man, NFL season flies by. It's fun, but either way, that's where we're going to wrap it up. Next week, we will be back. I guess we'll talk about the Pro Bowl. No, we won't. Come on now. I mean, maybe I'll talk about it. We'll have like a brief segment about why nobody cares about the Pro Bowl anymore and why it's sad. And then obviously it's going to be all Super Bowl. Well, maybe not all Super Bowl. There's going to be other news. But primarily we're going to focus on this Super Bowl. We're going to focus on matchup itself. We're going to break it down even further than I did to begin the show. And yeah, it should be a good time. It should be a lot of fun. Looking forward to it. There won't be any more live reaction to game streams because Lions season is done. So like I said on the end of last Sunday, the conference championship game, after I said that, or at the end of it, appreciate everybody for stopping by on those streams. Hell of a time. I don't know. I probably will still see if I can do weekly, maybe weekly. I'm not really sure. Live reactions to different games because I do like other sports other than football. But right now, you know, it's like basketball and the Pistons stink and Michigan State kind of stinks. And hockey is, I'm not going to be able to do hockey play-by-play. That's just not in my gear shift, okay? The Red Wings are good, but I might do live reactions, but it would be far more casual. And at that point, I'd probably only do it if I could guarantee a good amount of people would show up and be willing to hang out. But either way, maybe when baseball starts, we might do, assuming the Tigers are worth watching, we might do like a weekly, watch like the Saturday game or like, I don't know, one of the afternoon games or something. I don't know. Either way, appreciate you for stopping by, hanging out. If you enjoyed, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, because I do appreciate it. I look at the stats. I see how many views I get and how many likes I get. You guys aren't even liking the video. And it makes me want to cry. I don't actually cry. Or maybe I do. I'll leave that up for you to decide. Either way, have a great night, everybody. I'll catch you guys next week. We'll break it all down. Any news of the week. So see you later, everybody. Have a great night and take care. Goodbye.